Good evening. Welcome to the first meeting of Overview and Scrutiny Committee for this 25-26 municipal year. Let's start with a round of introductions. So my name's Matt White and I chair this committee, and then committee members to my left, starting with Councillor Ganesh.
Hi, I'm Councillor Makbule Gunes. I'm the Chair of Environment, Culture and Community Safety.
Hi, I'm Councillor Anna Lawton and I'm Chair of Children's and Young People Scrutiny Panel.
Hello, I'm Councillor Adam Small and I'm Chair of the Housing Planning and Development Scrutiny Panel.
Great, thanks for that. And welcome to Councillors Small and Lawton, new members of the committee. And I think it probably also makes sense to say thank you to Councillor Buxton and Councillor Worrell, who stood down from the committee, and thank them for their hard work. We've got a couple of officers in the room. Would you like to introduce yourselves, Dominic?
I'm Dominic O'Brien. I'm a Scrutiny Officer to the committee.
Yes, good evening. I'm Jackie Longmore, Principal Lawyer under Borough.
Thank you very much. Okay, so first item on the agenda is about filming at meetings. So just to note the information about that on the front of the agenda pack, just to point out that the meeting's being streamed live. Now we've sorted out the technical issues, and being recorded for subsequent broadcast via the council's internet site. Okay, so apologies for absence. We've had apologies from Councillor Connor. Item 3 is urgent business. We've got no new items of urgent business. Item 4, declarations of interest. So do any members present have any declarations of interest related to the items on the agenda? No, I see no indications. Item 5 is deputations, questions, etc. I think we've had none of those received in time for this meeting. So thanks for that. So item 6, moving on swiftly. This is the minutes of this committee. We need to agree the minutes for the meetings of the 27th of March and the 8th of April. And also to note that the action points from those two meetings, responses received, have been circulated, and we've got hard copies, which I think members of the committee have got in front of them. Before we agree those, does anyone have anything to raise about the minutes of those meetings? No. So are we happy to approve those minutes as an accurate record of those two meetings? Okay, that's agreed. Right, item 7 is minutes of scrutiny panel meetings, and this item's to note the minutes of the scrutiny panel meetings that are held in February and March. Do members have any questions on these, or anything that they want to raise that's relevant to the meetings of their panels? Nope. Okay, so those are noted then. And oh yeah, I think we need to formally agree the actions that are contained. So can we agree the actions that are contained within those, sorry, the recommendations that are included within those minutes? Okay, right. The first substantive item on the agenda this evening is item 8, which is the membership and terms of reference for this committee, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and the 4 scrutiny panels. Can we note that we're proposing to change the name of one of the panels, which is the panel that's now going to be chaired by Councillor Ganesh, and that's now going to be called Culture, Community Safety and Environment, and that's because we've due to some the need to put so much focus on this committee on finance budget, not just the annual budget round, but the in-year finance monitoring. We've needed to kind of rejig a bit where the other things that this committee was looking at go, and we've decided to move culture and leisure out to that panel. So that's what's brought about the change of name of that panel. There's a couple of other things to draw members' attention to. The first one is looking at the OSC protocol in paragraph 9.2. There was a transposition error which led to part of the wording being left out of paragraph 9.2. So I'm just going to find wording in my. So it's on page 70. Oh, it's 86. Sorry, I'm looking at a different 9.2. Right, yes. Yeah, 86. The paragraph in the papers says, it talks about budget scrutiny, and it says a lead committee member from the largest opposition group will be responsible for coordination of the budget scrutiny process and recommendations and made by the panels and the committee relating to the budget. But the wording has always been, for a while at least, a lead committee member from the largest opposition group shall be responsible for chairing the budget scrutiny process and coordinating recommendations made by respective scrutiny panels and the committee relating to the budget. So we're not changing the wording. We're just noting that the wording that's in the papers for tonight's meeting is not correct, and we're not being asked to agree that wording. Because we're not agreeing the protocol tonight. The protocol is in the papers for noting, and it's just been transcribed incorrectly. So just to note that there's that error. So issue 2. This is about a change, and this is something that Councillor Connor has raised. And she's concerned that the Adults and Health Scrutiny Panel terms of reference don't really talk about health services, and she's concerned that she wants to be able to call in health providers in the borough, let's say, for instance, Whittington or North Mid, to her panel, which she has been doing. Now, we've been advised by Democratic Services that the portfolios that are set out in Appendix C of the paper are based on the remits of cabinet members. So that's effectively the remit of Councillor Connor's panel reflects the remit of Councillor Davsnev's cabinet portfolio. I'm going to suggest that that we don't change the. Oh no, no. So she wants to add 3 bullet points to it, and I'm going to suggest that that we do change the terms of reference, because it's been practice for her to bring in the providers, and she's been doing that. So I don't see any problem with making those changes. So the suggestion is that 3 bullet points are added to the portfolio. 1 is health and social care integration. 1 is chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board, and 1 is for services for adults with disabilities and additional needs. So would we be happy to make those changes to reflect what Councillor Small?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the only thing I just want to check is that by sort of expanding out the remit on that particular panel, we don't sort of create a precedent where it is assumed that sort of in all areas of responsibility that because in another area we've clarified outside of the cabinet responsibility something that is included, that because on another scrutiny panel we haven't done so, that would exclude us from needing to pull in people who we feel is responsible. Do you know what I mean? That there wouldn't be an accepted practice that, well, it would state, because it's not just the case that it always represents the cabinet responsibilities, because, as you can see here, that kind of thing.
I mean, I suppose with that particular panel and with the children's panel, then we are talking about a panel that just reflects the responsibilities of one particular cabinet member. But I think it's always been practice on that panel to bring in those providers. So I don't see what the problem is in reflecting that in the terms of reference of the panel. I mean, the alternative course of action could be to leave the terms of reference as they are and just note the fact and note in the minutes for this meeting that doesn't prevent Councillor Connor from calling in those providers if she wishes to do that. That's the other thing we could choose to do. So, but in effect, whichever we do, I think what actually happens in the panel will be the same.
Is this the terms of reference? Has it just been changed recently? Because I think, like you mentioned, that Councillor Connor was obviously bringing in health care providers. I mean, the health and scrutinizing that as well. But have they changed the way the service has been provided? Sorry, the scrutiny. Has there been any changes to?
Dominic has information on that.
Yeah, so the terms of reference as they are, the panel portfolio was the same last year. I think that basically what happens is that when the cabinet remits are published and as they go out on the website, we basically just sort of cut and paste from that, because we are directly shadowing the cabinet members. So it has been like this for a while. I think that Councillor Connor just pointed out that it should explicitly mention health services. It might also be useful just for the committee to know that in the overview and scrutiny procedure rules in the Constitution, it does say that scrutiny panels can analyse additional information and question cabinet members, relevant council officers, local stakeholders, and where relevant officers and board members of local NHS bodies or NHS funded bodies. So that power of the scrutiny committee and the scrutiny panels is in there in the Constitution. So whatever we do with the actual terms of reference, that power is still there. It's just that obviously our terms of reference make it clear what we're sort of intending to focus on over the course of the next year.
So I would say that I'm agnostic on this because effectively what the terms of reference say on this point don't change what Councillor Connor can do in her panel. But Councillor Connor, I believe, feels quite strongly that she wants that part of what she does to be reflected in the terms of reference. So I'm happy to go with that. Councillor Lawton.
Sorry, Chair, could you just clarify the additional terms exactly that Councillor Connor wants included?
So what I've got in front of me, it says 3 bullet points. The first bullet point is health and social care integration. Second bullet point is chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board. And third bullet point is services for adults with disabilities and additional needs.
Sorry, I do have one point, that last bullet point. I think that's covered by adult social care, which is already within the area of responsibility, because, you know, the element of social care means that they do have vulnerabilities. So I don't think that third point is strictly necessary. And then you've got Dominic's points as well.
Yeah, I think those bullet points were probably part of an email exchange that's quite late in the day, just today. So it may be that we might be able to sort of tweak those a little bit to more accurately reflect things that the panel wants to do in terms of, you know, NHS trusts, for example, maybe be a little bit clearer that it's health services more widely.
So I suppose the problem we've got then is that Councillor Connor isn't here to clarify exactly the wording she wants. And if what I've got in front of me is what's been communicated to me for this meeting, but I haven't got a direct line to Councillor Connor now to clarify that. So
yeah, that is her wording. Just to clarify, the 3 bullet points, that's her wording from her email. We haven't changed that.
Councillor,
think that I was actually going to make the same point, that one of them seems tautological to me, and it just seems like laying out every individual minutiae, which kind of relates to Councillor Small's point, which it makes it seem like if something isn't in the terms of reference, you can't do it, as it were. So it's the other way around. So I would be, I mean, if Councillor Connor feels strongly about it, I understand that we may want to include it, but then if we did do that, I would firstly be in favour of not the third point, because I think it's already in there. And secondly, I'd be in favour of noting that this meeting has done that to make sure everyone is happy with their terms of reference, but very specifically to note that the that our remits are not limited by these terms of reference anyway, if that makes sense. So that this doesn't set some sort of precedent that we all need to add in everything, because as Dominic explained previously, it's clear that we can pull in external bodies relevant to the remit on all sorts of things without including them, if that makes sense.
okay, so is it possible? Do we have to set the terms of reference for all the panels, and are they set in stone for the next year now, or can we basically agree the terms of reference and leave this little bit to the next meeting and just agree the wording when we can get clear how, you know, bringing in those providers that we've talked about that don't really necessarily seem to be fully represented by these 3 bullet points? Because I feel like we need to have a little bit of a back and forth with Councillor Connor about the wording. Is that possible?
I think you're right. I think we could certainly, I mean, I don't know, Jackie might have something to say on this, but I think that we could either bring it back to the next meeting just for that minor point, which could be just dealt with in the minutes quite quickly, once everything's been sort of sorted out with that conversation, or it could even be agreed tonight, subject to, and then to delegate that small part to the Democratic Services Manager, for example, to clarify. But if you'd rather it went through the committee next time, which is the 22nd of July, then we can do that, no problem.
Thanks. So are we happy to agree it and delegate it to Democratic Services Manager to agree the final wording? But that in principle, it's about the being able to call in those external providers. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. Right. So let's just go back to the papers after having gone through all of that and just check that we're not missing any of the recommendations. Got this on. Right.
Then we're on to current government representatives, which again,
Yeah, I'm just checking we're not missing. Just checking we're not missing the recommendations. Right. Yeah. No, I knew there were a few recommendations here. So we're noting the terms of reference and the protocol. We're establishing the 4 scrutiny panels, which includes the change in the name of one of the panels to culture, community safety and environment. We're approving the remits and membership of each scrutiny panel, which we've just discussed a bit, and the membership is in the papers. And the final thing, which we haven't mentioned, is to approve myself and Councillor Connor to be reappointed as the 2 Haringey representatives to the North Central London Joint Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the next year, which Pippa actually chairs across the 5 boroughs. So are we happy to agree those 4 recommendations? Okay, that's agreed. Thank you. Yes.
It's about culture, community safety, environment scrutiny panel. So actually, I mean, the areas that are 4 distinct areas that needs to be, you know, the committee needs to do scrutiny on, and considering the time, the commitment and the resources allocated to, as a chair of the committee, I feel like we might not be doing justice to all the areas of what's been allocated. And I just want that to be on the record, that we will endeavor our best, but I think considering the resources and other factors, we might not be able to cover every area.
Thank you for making that
Deserves.
important point. I entirely agree with you. We are in a position now, and there's there's mention of this in the papers, that we really need to devote quite a lot in this overarching committee, quite a lot of our time to finance scrutiny, which really puts a lot of burden on the 4 panels, and obviously this has put an increased burden on your panel, and I agree with you. I would personally, and I've made myself clear about this, I think we actually need a 5th panel, but for the same resource reasons, that's not possible at the moment. But thank you for raising that, and yeah, we can note that in the minutes. Thank you. Okay. Next item is the appointment of parent governor representatives. That's item 9. So this report recommends the appointment of voting co-opted members to 2 of the panels, to the children's panel and to the overview and scrutiny committee. So these are 2 new parent governor representatives, Camilla Borthwick Fox and Christine Corden, to both the Children and Young People Scrutiny Panel and to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to participate in meetings when matters of education are being considered. Does anyone have any questions on this item? Or
Very quick clarification.
Go ahead.
Are we approving have they been recruited and recommended to us to appoint? Is that what we are?
So there's been a process, and they've put themselves forward, and they've met officers, and I've met them. And Councillor Lawson, have you spoken to them? No. Yeah. So there's been a process. Yeah. Okay. So there's 2 recommendations. First one is that Camilla Borthwick Fost and Christine Corden be appointed as voting co-opted members to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to participate in meetings when educational matters are being considered. And the second one is that the same 2 people be appointed to the Children and Young People Scrutiny Panel as panel members, because that is the panel that has responsibility for considering educational matters. So are we happy to agree those recommendations? Okay, that's agreed. Great. Right, next item is item 10, and this is the appointment of non-voting co-opted members. This is following the introduction of a new process for appointing non-voting co-opted members to the scrutiny panels, and the report recommends the appointment of 2 non-voting co-opted members, Amanda Bernard to the Children and Young People Scrutiny Panel, and Helen Canier to the Adults and Health Scrutiny Panel. And just to note that the proposed appointments have been endorsed by the Corporate Director of Children's Services and the Director of Adult Social Care. Does anyone have any questions on this item? Okay, so are we happy to agree those appointments then? Great, so that's agreed. Right, item 11 is the work programme. And that's just to note really that the work programme for the next year, the next municipal year, includes 4 meetings for quarterly finance and performance monitoring. That's in addition to the budget meetings that we have. And we've put 2 additional meetings in the diary to look at non-finance issues, and that's particularly issues that came from the Scrutiny Cafe, that are to do with what the council's doing to combat worklessness and low pay and insecure work around the borough, and also the issue of how the council communicates with residents. So I'm happy to take any suggestions for items to be included in these meetings now, or we can deal with them offline. That's fine. But does anyone have anything to say about the work programme, or ask or suggest? Councillor Small.
Thanks, Chair. Actually, it is just again to reiterate the point about the work of scrutiny being able, the capacity over the things to look at over the year, and that whilst I understand that the financial situation warrants the additional focus, that this by necessity replaces or squeezes our capacity to look at other areas. I appreciate the other meetings have been added in and so on, but I think that also translates into the panels themselves. And just to reiterate as a newbie, but to reiterate your point about the work the scrutiny needs to be able to do to hit the points that are outlined in 5.1, to really have a full body of work to take up on sort of a key issue like that does squeeze our ability to look at other areas, and that emphasizing maybe the need to consider another panel, or how we actually are going, because I don't think the financial situation is going to ease rapidly, and how we are going to look at finance as a scrutiny committee over the coming years, whilst also being able to do our other things.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I entirely agree, but it's just the situation that we're in at the moment. We need to put a lot of our focus onto the finance side of things, because the work is really going on to put the council on a sustainable financial footing. We have an important part in that process. We have an important governance role actually in that process. So we do need to be putting a lot of focus on that. But yeah, I've been making an argument quite strongly about the need for more resource for scrutiny, but arguing for more resource is a hard it's a hard point to make, really. Councillor Lawson.
Just on that point, Chair, when you say you've been arguing for more resource, what is the official sort of process? Is there one for example, recommending another panel or taking that forward? I'm just worried. I'm thinking about the kind of scrutinising of scrutiny, if that makes sense, because in our doing effective function of, for example, identifying underperforming services, whilst if you look at some of the remits here, 4 or 5 meetings a year on sort of 20 services within the remit, it's relatively unrealistic on some level that we'll be able to even get to the point of identifying some of those things, never mind scrutinising them. And I'm just slightly concerned to follow up on Councillor Guinness's point that just to kind of note that concern, I suppose, from the panel, both on the finance point and on some of the remits, but also to ask for clarification on what the process would be if to recommend better resource for scrutiny.
So, I mean, looking at the Constitution actually pretty much gives us free rein. So we can set up as many panels as we want, right? The panels all need to be chaired by a member of this committee, but we could have 15 panels that were all chaired by you, and none of the rest of us share a panel. Right? That's technically possible, but the problem is that if you set up these panels, they need to hold meetings. And we can call extra meetings if we want to, but they need to be resourced. So there has to be a reasonable back and forth with officers about how we effectively resource the meetings in a context in which officer resource is more and more squeezed. So we've been having those conversations, and where we've got to is what's in the papers. But yeah, I would like to be somewhere else, and I appreciate what you're all saying. But there you go, that's it. So so unless anyone has any specific items that they want to raise, suggest for future meetings, I think we can just note the work programme and move on. Okay. Okay, great. So that's item 11. So item 12 is new items of urgent business. And then item 13 is dates of future meetings, which are on the agenda pack. And to note that we've had 2 new meetings added since the original schedule was agreed at full council on the 20th of October and the 12th of February. But our next meeting is on the what date in July is it? The
22nd of July. So
22nd, yeah.
Shall I just comment briefly on the items that we've got coming up for that?
Oh, yes, go ahead, Dominic.
Because what we would normally do, just for new members joining the committee, what we would normally have at this first meeting is we try to get the leader of the council to take questions. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a date that worked in June, so that's going to have to be on the meeting on July the 22nd. It's going to be quite a long, potentially a bit of a sort of long, busy meeting because we've also got the provisional financial outturn report. So that will be basically essentially the Q4 report. For the last quarter of 24-25, and that will be shortly after that report goes to cabinet earlier that month. So we will have the deputy director for finance and the cabinet member for finance at that meeting, as well as the leader of the council and hopefully the chief executive as well, to take questions. So yeah, that's why tonight's meeting is a little bit short, and the one in July is going to be a little bit long, unfortunately. So that's the way it's. So unfortunately,
don't plan for an early night on the 22nd of July then. Sorry. That's how it goes. Right. Okay. So that's it for today. So we can close the meeting. So thanks everyone. It's a pretty short meeting this evening, but thanks for coming. Cheers.